2017. So for 8 years we protested 3-4 times a year against the British government supporting the regime in Ukraine, which was put in a violent coup in 2014. That was an illegal, illegitimate change of government. The government in Ukraine is not a constitutional government. But nobody was interested. The anti-fascist and anti-racist groups in Britain, they talk about the far right in Hungary, in France, in Germany and so on, but in Ukraine it didn't exist.
Het regent ook niet meer.
British establishment, they put into the left wing in Britain, they put the idea that the Donbass republics, the people who rebelled against the coup in Kiev, were dominated by right-wing nationalists and religious people. Many people, trade unionists, have told me to my face, they think, and many people on the left, they think Russia is a fascist country. So the incredible thing is that after the Russian intervention last year, our organisation is absolutely tiny, a very small group of very small parties. But since February 2022, we've increased in size by 4, 5, 6 times. We've gone from being only working in London to a national organisation, and we've been building all our international contacts as well, in Ireland, in the Ukrainian exile community, in Russia, with parties inside Ukraine as well, especially in the Donbass. Now, for many years, the Banderite Nazis in Ukraine have committed countless crimes. Most people don't have an idea. Most people have never heard about the massacre of progressives and trade unionists in Odessa. But the crimes that they committed, it's countless. When this war is over, just counting up the crimes they've committed and bringing justice to the people of Ukraine is going to be an enormous task. And all throughout that time, the Western mass media and the media in Britain, they've hidden that. In Mariupol, during the fighting in Mariupol, which was the main base of the Azov Battalion, they regard the Russian-speaking community in eastern and southern Ukraine as worse than animals, Untermenschen. They call them Moscows. So they're in a town. Now, the problem for people like the Azov and the nationalists is that the Russian speakers in Ukraine, many of them, they see the Russian nation as their brothers and sisters, and many of them also value what they had during the Soviet Union, when Ukrainian industry, the coal mines and the steel factories, the fantastic engineering they had in Ukraine. They used to make the biggest planes in the world, rockets and so on. Most of that is gone. So in Mariupol, they were murdering these people, and not just Mariupol, all over the Donbass, in the areas which they were controlled by the Kiev forces. In Mariupol especially, they blew up dozens of apartment buildings. They blew up the theatre, the hospital, and so on. And then they brought the Western media, they filmed it, and they supported what the Russians were doing. Now, in all this time, we never heard anything, no reports, not a single report about somebody on the other side being killed in the Donbass, the civilians in the next city.
Ja, propaganda.
For 8.5 years now.
We don't hear the full stories.
Never reported in the Western media. In the last year and a half, all we've heard is every time you switch on the radio or the TV, you hear people talking about people who died on the Ukrainian side. We know that the Russian forces, they're not going for the mass carpet bombing of the style which the Israelis are doing now in Gaza. And what is happening in Gaza is just unbelievable. It's like a living nightmare, and it's going on day after day. And the same countries who've supported this regime in Kiev, this handful of countries, 70 rich countries, they've never been so isolated as they are. in the world now. And what they're doing in Gaza, they're going to pay the price because the whole world is turning against them. But we know from our campaigning and when we're protesting, many people come to us. We have communist banners, banners about what's happening in Ukraine, about the Odessa massacre. They come and say, fantastic, what you're doing is great. And people from all over the world, even an American guy came. And sometimes they're just passing by because we're opposite the Prime Minister's residence in the middle of Russia, in the middle of London, telling them to stop sending money and weapons to Ukraine. And we know that millions of people in Britain, they're not believing the lies. And they actually, somehow or other, they've got an idea of what's really happening. Now, we are already thinking about what's going to happen because in the future, in the next few years, because the Ukrainian armed forces are at rock bottom. The Ukrainian army, all the weapons that NATO sent, all the lives which were spent, 70,000-80,000 Ukrainian soldiers, what a waste. And now they've lost the will to fight. So we're now looking what's going to happen after the war. What we want to see is genuine democracy, democratic rights, freedom of the media, freedom for all political parties, for the crimes of the Banderites, the Nazis, to be justice to be delivered, and that's a huge task. But if that happens, you get a regime like that, which may be like a broad coalition of different political forces. What will happen is that the West will say this is a Russian puppet state, and it's a big concentration camp. It's worse than Nazi Germany. And what they'll do, they'll put sanctions. They will use the Nazis, their networks that they have, to commit terrorism and subversion. So the Ukrainian people will need our solidarity for years to come. And I just want to say, I've met many Ukrainian exiles, and the suffering which they've endured is unbelievable. I mean, people who supported a march like this, or even maybe did a like on Facebook, hundreds, thousands of people, elderly people, or who continued working in their jobs when the Russians came to an area and then it went back to Kiev, arrested, put in prison, sent to prison for 4 years.
Dit is heel belangrijk.
And all their property confiscated.
Voor protesten, alles wordt je afgenomen en je gaat naar de gevangenis als je protesteert tegen de oorlog.
Down with Banderite Nazism, down with NATO warmongering. No pasaran, niet fascismu.
Woo! Als je in Oekraïne dus gaat protesteren tegen de oorlog, dan wordt al jouw spullen onteigend en dan ga je naar de gevangenis. Vrij land waarvoor wij alles op moeten offeren. Duidelijke woorden, mensen. Word wakker.